The Force will be with you, always. The Force will be with you, always.
Hey kids, here we go. It's time for ATGLive with Pete and Nick and all the gang. Chris, Kelsey, let's go.
ATGLive. ATGLive.
Nick and Pete, they're on the beat.
ATGLive.
Kelsey's pushing buttons and flipping switches.
ATGLive.
Chris is in the back,
ATGLive.
checking the facts.
ATGLive.
News, guests, and special features. ATGLive. The Force is strong with this one. The show that gives you everything you need.
ATGLive.
If you can take it,
ATGLive.
the show you didn't know you needed. But now that you have it, you can't live without it. ATGLive. Right, ATGLive.
Well, yeah.
Welcome to ATGLive. Pete didn't read the show notes because
I was just looking at them as we started. I was like, oh, nuts.
It's a new week. It's a new show. It's 3 weeks in a row, despite the fact that we told you we're going to start going into an every other week situation. But we've had a perfect storm of amazing things, great guests. Pete's book came out last week, so we are on 3 in a row. We will be off next week because it's Thanksgiving. The week after that, you know, it's anybody's game. It's anybody's guess. You don't know what's going to happen around here. But tonight, it is ATGLive. I am one of your hosts, Nick. I am joined with my good friend, my brother from another mother. Pete Fletzer is here, author, noted author, released book author.
Not noted. I would say
noted.
Author.
I noticed. Chris probably noticed. Somebody noticed. You're noted. But it's another Thursday night of talking about Star Wars, talking about the news of the week, digging into some fun stuff. And we have a fantastic guest tonight. Pete, who is with us tonight on the show?
We are joined by Kwame Mbalia. He's the author of the new book called Star Wars: The Final Order. You're saying author so many times, I almost said the final author, and that would be just a weird book title. But
that'd be a tough way to go.
The Final Order. Listen, if you're a fan of Finn, Jannah, the sequel trilogy, check out that book immediately. In fact, you could read it while we're talking to him in a couple minutes, but it is billed as the first post Rise of Skywalker. No, not Rise. Yeah, Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
I always feel like I always get the title wrong of Rise of Skywalker, and then I always screw up Revenge of the Sith. I still say Return of the Sith, and that's not right. I've only been a fan for 48 years, so I still have some time.
What do you even know?
But
Big
no,
fan.
this book is great. It's available on wherever you can get books. It's also available on audio, which is the way I checked it out. And just a really fun book, and I'm excited to talk to Kwame about that. I have so many questions. I have no spoiler questions because we want you to read it, but I do have some questions for him. So
absolutely. And it's such a fun space and time in Star Wars, and we've got stuff coming up eventually with the Rey movie and the things that are going to fall into that timeline. But it is kind of a significant deal for it to be the first canon thing in the post Rise of Skywalker era. So that's going to be something certainly for us to dig into. Lots of fun stuff there. We're going to get to him in just a few minutes. Before we do that, we are nothing if not shills. I can prove it because it's written on my cell phone case. We are shills. And so tonight, what I am shilling to you is the SSWnetwork.com. It is your one-stop shop for everything we do. It's right here on the screen. Merchandise, news stories, Patreon program. We have a great Patreon program. We had a dedicated, amazing group of patrons who support us, and we haven't shouted y'all out enough lately. We love you. We thank you for your support of us. If you'd like to be a part of that, I believe it's for as little as $3 a month. You can get connected up for some swag, early interviews, when we do the long form podcast, meetups. We really are trying to make this something that's worthwhile for you. Again, we've got our merch store. We come up with silly ideas for t-shirts, stickers, pint glasses. It's probably where I'm going to do all my holiday shopping because, as I said the other week, I'm going to buy all these gifts for my friends and family, and then when they don't like them or want them, I'm just going to keep them for myself. So I'm going to end up winning. You could do the same thing. It's a pro tip for you. So check out the sswnetwork.com. It will get you everywhere you want to go. Also, we've got on the screen, we have our phone number, 504-321-1501. If you call that number, it's a Google voice line. You're not going to wake me up in the middle of the night. I'll sleep just fine. Well, aside from the normal horrors of life, but I will sleep just fine. You won't wake me up, but you can leave us your thoughts about Star Wars. And if you call and leave them, we will play them. History has proven we will play them on the air. We don't care if you talk about how dumb you think we are, or if our takes are bad, or if you have a really brilliant take. We're not going to try and claim it for ourselves. We're going to play it. We're going to talk about it. So give us a call. Tell us what you love about Star Wars, because that's what we do here. We love Star Wars.
Plain and simple. We love Star Wars. But you know who loves Star Wars? If we're looking at our Star Wars cards and our membership cards, I think there's one guy who's part of this show who might be able to make a case for having a slightly more active Star Wars card, because nobody knows books and comics like our good friend Chris Ryans. Chris, what is up, my friend? How are you?
Hey, doing great. I can't wait to talk about the Last Order.
What did I call it? Did I call it the First Order? I did.
Call it the Final Order.
The Final Order. God dang it! I am.
You're fired.
It's
You're
okay.
out.
My book is called "The Boy Owns the Myth." So
who owns the toilet? Pete.
Right.
Wow.
I am so sorry. Oh my god. I want to see. I can blame Nick. Oh my god. Yeah, we are a very professional show here. But Chris, let's move along.
Wait, hold on. Here's what we need to really point out, because Pete got it so wrong.
I'll hold on to that for a little bit.
I'm offended, and but not as offended as Kwame.
You're offended.
You're watching.
I was say our guest is here, and you got the title of his book wrong. So let's talk about offended later.
Okay, all right. Well, Nick, why don't you do our toast so that I can stop screwing up the title, and I can screw it up in front of him.
What a fantastic transition we have here. It is time for actually, that reminds me. Let me upload that video real fast. Let me add that video to what we're doing. We do have a toast tonight. It is our 10 Parsec Toast. And this is, you may have seen it at the top of the show. Let me get rid of this real quick. Our 10 Parsec Toast tonight, you will notice we have my Jorg Sakul. That's our George Lucas type X-Wing pilot figure in here. Our toast tonight goes out to my father, Dan Milkey. My dad died on Monday night. He was sick for a very long time, but something that is very, very important to me is my dad is the one who introduced me to sci-fi. He introduced me to Star Wars. He was more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy, but he absolutely introduced me to Star Wars, to the expanded universe, EU. He was sick. He's resting now. He's at peace now, which gives me peace, and I'm thankful for that. But I would not be the person I am, the man I am, the husband, the father I am, without the guidance of my father over the last 47 years of my life. So I am going to miss him. I am very, very thankful that he is resting. But I did have to use the Jorg Sakul figure because at certain times in his life, with his beard and his hair and his beard, my dad kind of passed a weird, bizarre resemblance to George Lucas. So fake George goes into the glass. I raise a toast absolutely to Daniel Howard Milkey Jr. And to all of my friends hanging out. A lot of you have reached out to me in the last couple of days with your support, and I thank you for that. So I cheers, happy Star Wars. And in honor of my dad, I will say, live long and prosper.
to set a new record there in honor of your dad, man. That was I'm so sorry for you, man. And we of course send our love from the Northeast down to you
Absolutely.
guys.
He, like I said, fantastic man, great influence in my life, great grandfather, husband, friend, incredibly talented. Like the amount of stuff that he could do, like I wish I could do all the stuff he did. His career, his trade, he was a watch and clock maker, which is like little teeny tiny parts, and he was a certified Rolex technician, did all this incredible stuff, and he could paint and he could build stuff out of wood, and he was that guy, and I admire it so much. So we will miss him, but most importantly, I'm so thankful that he's able to finally rest. So thank y'all for allowing me the moment to share with him, because again, I wouldn't be here without him. So it's a big deal for me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Kwame Mbalia, the author of Star Wars: The Last Order. Did I get it right that time? I did. All right, we'll be right back in just a minute. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. We do have book conversations, believe it or not, even though Nick and I have not been as adamant as we should be. But
I live in Alabama. I am functionally illiterate most of the time.
Well, I think by law, I don't think they sell as many books in Alabama, actually, if I'm not mistaken, unless you can color them in. Wow. Canceled. In Alabama. Well, tonight we're thrilled to welcome a truly extraordinary storyteller, Kwame Mbalia. He is a New York Times bestselling author, best known for Tristan Strong, a series that blends African-American folklore, African mythology, I love mythology, and heartfelt adventure in a way that has resonated with readers of all ages. His work is celebrated for its humor, heart, and its powerful exploration of heritage and heroism. His latest Star Wars book is Star Wars: The Last Order, which we are excited to talk to him about. Beyond his novels, Kwame is also an advocate for diverse voices in publishing and a creative force who brings joy, depth, and imagination to everything he works on. And the book is great. Please join me in welcoming Kwame Mbalia. There he is. Look, he's holding it right so that I won't say final. I get it, man. I get
it. Pete, you get a pass, man, because I think as someone with the name that I have, it takes people a couple tries sometimes to get it right, but you absolutely nailed it. Yeah, you nailed Kwame Mbalia, and so you know what? If you want to call it the final order, if you throw whatever synonym you want there. You've got for the run of the show, you've got to pass.
It could be the tasty order, whatever you're feeling.
Well, thank you. And listen, I get it because on the other side with a name like Fletcher, I get Fletcher all the time. I was on Screen Crush with my friends over there, and the first 2 years, Ryan and Eric called me Pete Feltzer, and so always put the name wrong on the screen, but we're there. We did it. We're just happy that you are with us tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out, and congrats on the book, man. How's it feel? How does it feel that it's out? And
I mean, it feels great. And my science fiction and fantasy reader nerds will recognize this this analogy or this saying, but like it was really a joy of 3 parts. There's of course, like the knowledge that I'm going to be doing a book in the Star Wars universe, right? Like there's that celebration, there's that joy. And then there's the joy of like completing it, sending it off. The story group loves it. I got a couple of I can't remember if it was like haha or LOLs from Pablo Hidalgo, which is, as someone who has many copies of like the teardowns of vehicles and everything, getting that was like, yes, that's a feather in the cap. So there's joy sending that in, and then there's the joy of release and sort of the appreciation from everyone. Like, it has been an incredibly positive experience, and I don't care what fandom you're a part of, right? You understand that with every high there's there are lows that will come with it. And I have to say, I have been surfing high with all of the appreciation, the support from the Star Wars family, both within the publishing industry and just the readers, casual fans, show hosts, podcast hosts like yourself. It has been a really, really, really incredible experience. And as a the little nerd who wandered into the halcyon corridors of Blockbuster Video and first saw the poster on the wall with Luke holding the lightsaber, and Leia down there, like, to come full circle like that, it's a phenomenal and also humbling experience.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really incredible. Well, I want to ask you this, and we would be remiss if we didn't, because it's kind of the starting point for any Star Wars podcast, live stream, whatever. Give us kind of the quick background on when you became a Star Wars fan, and then kind of translate that into when you found out you got to do this project, because obviously there's a love for Star Wars. Kind of connect those two things for us. I have been looking. I've got it right here, and I don't know if it's on this one or not. But so my wife got me a Game Boy for I think it was my birthday a couple years back, right? And I've been trying to find. I distinctly remember playing a Star Wars game where I'm Luke and I'm wandering the deserts of Tatooine. I think I can hop in a speeder. I think I can travel in, like, I don't know. I can't remember what the game is. It's the Star Wars NES video game. I'm pretty sure it's the original Nintendo Star Wars video game. I remember. Yeah. Listen,
you just had that at the ready.
I've got it sitting right here at my desk.
I remember spending hours on that game, and that was because I told you, I first saw the poster on Blockbuster Video. But I distinctly remember watching every holiday season. It was either TNT or TBS. They would do their marathons of series. That's how I became a Bond fan. It's how I became a Star Wars fan, because they would play those movies back to back, and I had nothing better to do. I had no responsibilities, no mortgage, no electric bill, no job. So I would just sit and watch them. And I just remember becoming enraptured with Star Wars at that time. I'm not the only one in the household, so I can't beg my parents to go to Blockbuster every day and pay, I don't know, was it $6 or $7 to rent the video? And so I started trying to find everything that I could. And so I started turning to the books. I could go to the library because there was one 3-4 blocks from me that I could bike to. And I remember, now they're now the extended universe, but I remember just gobbling those stories up. Timothy Zahn, but by far the one that stands out is the Death Troopers, Star Wars and zombies, it was just a sweet spot for, a middle school kid like me. So really, the movies always, like, they're the anchor, but like for broadening out, for deepening my my appreciation for everything Star Wars, it's really the books that led me to explore and to find it, just really dive into like the crevices of Star Wars that, you only have so much time, so many minutes, so many screen time that you can explore story and plot within the movies. And so the books gave so much, you're allowed to take your time, leisurely explore different parts of the galaxy, different characters, go further into a character that you appreciated even more, learning their backstory, trying to figure out, so it was, I think that's where my love of Star Wars solidified, became incredibly grounded. And that was in the books.
Okay.
Wow. That's great. Chris, you're our go-to book guy. You got a question for Kwame, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and I want to just bring up the Finn character for a second, because as Nick and Pete know, when I talk about Finn, I start to get upset because of how, to me, his character was treated as a red herring leading up to The Force Awakens, and to me didn't really get his full potential. I'm not going to get upset.
Don't lie to us. I mean, we're watching you. We're watching you on camera.
But what was it like getting the chance to write for this character? And not to say that you went in to right any wrongs as far as it goes, but to expand on the character and maybe make expand on the character and really like flesh out more of him that we did not get in the movies. Like, for instance, in the movies, they never went into how good of a cadet he was, and you get this in The Last Order. So what was it like getting a chance to write that? I mean, did they give the story to you? Like, they want you to write a story about Finn, Jannah, and their connecting story, going to find these kids after Rise of Sky, after the Battle of Exegol, or was this something that you came up with and you're like, I'm gonna do something with Finn and Jannah? Like, how did that work out?
All of my, much to my agent's dismay, a lot of my story ideas started off as tweets when we still tweeted. I would throw things out into the social media echo chambers and be like, what if we got that? What if this happened? And a lot of that comes from me. I am a reader before I am a writer. And so when I put something out like that, that is a story I want to read. Right. And so for this story, there was right before Rise of Skywalker, there was, I want to say it was Esquire magazine. They did they had the photo shoot and they released all the set photos and everything. It's where we first saw Jannah for the first time, the Orbax, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that. I remember seeing Finn and Jannah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here's another stormtrooper, who has defected, right? And they're in the same movie. I want to know the backstories of these two characters that led them to, what was the sequence of events that led them to abandoning the First Order, right?
Yeah.
And I tweeted it. I think a little bit later, my agent was like, Kwame, you got to stop putting your ideas, quit it, Kwame, and so now I just text her, so she doesn't know what she unleashed. I just sent her my ideas at 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. But I deleted the tweet. Before I deleted it, I printed it off because I was like, no, I have the evidence just in case something happens. This was my idea, right? And so when we sat down with the Star Wars group to talk about what sort of story we could tell, I pulled it out. I thought there would be some negotiation, hey, here's what we think you could write. I pulled it out. They were like, yes, immediately, yes, let's do it. And so we were committed to that. Now, specifically with Finn, there is I am the sort of writer when there is an established character, an established story, an established universe, right? Specifically within shows and movies, sometimes within books, I think of it like in accordion, right? You have an accordion that is fully closed. And so when you expand it, you start to reveal all of these crevices and cracks within that were hidden. And so when I'm watching a movie, when I'm watching a show, I'm like, oh, they need to expand upon that. Oh, this could be a great story. Oh, we need this. We need this. We need a prequel focusing on this, that, on the third.
Mm-hmm.
So with Finn, I distinctly remember in The Force Awakens, there was a moment, Finn is at the table with Maz, and Maz says something to him, and Finn says, "You have no idea what I'm capable of."
Mm-hmm.
That just lodged in my brain. I'm like, why would he say that? You don't say that unless you've done something in the past that no one knows about, that you can't tell for very specific reasons, right?
Yep.
So that was really the kernel of Finn's story within The Last Order, was really revealing just a few of the events that people have no idea about, right? To this day. And it really gives me a chance. I want to credit Greg Rucka, who is the author of Star Wars Before the Awakening, which were 3 short stories of Finn, Rey, and Poe.
Yeah.
And within Finn's story, we do get a little bit more information about how good of a cadet he was, right? How good of a leader, his marksmanship, just the various capabilities that he had. And I took that, and that was sort of the scaffolding. I was like, okay, Finn is more than just comic relief within the story. He's more than just a emotional, charismatic, and hilarious driver of plot, right? There's depth to him. And so when I was trying to write his story, I leaned upon that. And whenever I'm writing a story, the biggest thing that I want to get across to the reader is the character's change, their growth, the story arc of the character that starts within. And for Finn, it's easy. We know where he ends up. He ends up as defecting, running away, right? So what signals the most growth? Have him as a dedicated trooper for the First Order, right? And then we get those steps to see those external nudges that force, this is the scientist in me, we have that physics. What is that impact? What is that momentum that is driving Finn away from his projected arc to this new story arc where he grows into a different character?
Yeah. And I love that we see, like those building blocks of him making his defection. And with Jana, we see, I guess, her full story of her defection before we meet her in Rise of Skywalker. And truth be told, I'm still listening to the book. I'm like a couple hours away, but I can see like where this is going, and like right now, like, oh man, the Major is he's doing some greasy work, and oof. But it's cool that they are seeing just like they've been brought up, like how they've been brought up, and how that's been wrong, and how bad that this organization is. So it's fantastic to see that, and I'm real hopeful to see what happens with these younger cadets that they found, and so I'm real excited to get to the end of this book.
Yeah, I have to say, Jana was writing Finn is fun because I love Finn. Writing Jana was exhilarating because she was a blank slate.
Yeah.
We had one, I think 3 or 4 sentence Wikipedia entry for her before she reaches the movie. She's a complete blank slate. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yes, you are, sir. Absolutely.
It's a gentle swear, I swear. But the ability to just make Jana a total badass, like it was wonderful. And you rarely get that opportunity with an established IP character, right? To go deep into their backstory and really mold them to where they are today, right? Yeah. And so being able to focus on the heart of her story, which is the relationships with her and her squad mates, right? Yeah. Dealing with trauma, dealing with how am I supposed to be a good leader when I don't believe in my leaders, right? At the end of the day, I always have to remind people, at the end of the day, this is a young adult book. This was a book with the intended readership was always going to be primarily teens, right? And so when we think about the mantras, when we think about constantly being told, like, this is what you're supposed to do, this is how you're supposed to think, at the end of the day, the message is, you are in control of your own thoughts. The voices, the external pressure, the peer pressure, all of that, something that you have to deal with. Everyone deals with it in different ways. Finn and Jenna have completely different ways of dealing with it. But the first step is recognizing that these aren't your thoughts, these are someone else's. What are your thoughts? And how do you go from there?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, I have a couple more really important Finn questions that I want to get to, but we're going to take a real short break. And when we come back, I want to talk about that. I want to dig more into Jana, and we're going to spend some more time talking to you about this book and the approach to it, because I think it does definitely, it's written in a very sort of unique and specific way. So we're going to take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll be spending more time with Kwame Mbalia. We are back on ATG Live, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars, hanging out with Kwame Mbalia, the author of The Last Order, not The Final Order, The Last Order, and having a real good time talking to you, Kwame, and just I just have to say, your excitement about this book is infectious. If I hadn't read it beforehand or listened to it, as I said before, I would have had to go out and get it immediately. This is just you're bringing that excitement, which I think is fantastic, and I love hearing that, because you're clearly a fan. And it's funny, I find that people who are Finn fans, like as their favorite character from the sequels, they're all in, and Chris is one of them for sure. And there's something about that character that grabbed people. What is it about Finn that made you really want to dig into him as a character beyond what we've gotten? Because you probably may have had a couple different options as you were building your Star Wars opportunity, but what made you really want to dig into him and Jana? Because I think Jana, I feel like after Rise of Skywalker, they kind of go hand in hand, just from a background perspective. But
yeah, I mean, listen, I'd be remiss if we didn't, talk about the elephant in the room. And that is, like, these are, two prominent Black Star Wars characters. Yeah. Right. For Jenna, she is a curly-haired Black woman. Right. There's something to be said for. I've been waiting a long time. I love Lando Calrissian. I got capes. All right. I have capes. I love Lando Calrissian. I'm a Mace Windu fan. I got a purple. I don't know where my lightsaber is. It's in the car. I'm doing a school visit tomorrow. I got my Stormtrooper helmet and my lightsaber in the car. I have a purple lightsaber blade, but Finn specifically, and then Jana adds on to it. There are two elements, right? And I think of when I first saw the first trailer and Finn sits up in the desert, right? One, the first thing I say is, oh, he's Black. The second thing I say, which is, if not as important, is pretty, I thought was pretty important. I was like, oh, he's a stormtrooper. From a story perspective, we don't get that. We didn't get that in any of the previous 6 movies.
He's the first.
So immediately, I'm like, oh, I'm Issa Rae. I'm rooting for everybody black, but also this is a stormtrooper. The story here, this story set up as a writer, I'm like, oh, this could go anywhere. This is fascinating. Yep. I love villains from the perspective that they provide complexity to a story. In order to tell a story from a villain's POV or about a villain, you have to get into their head, and you have to, you have to make them three-dimensional to get it. In order to tell a stormtrooper story, they were lightsaber fodder for the previous movies, right? And now they're a main character. How is this going to work? So immediately I gravitate to those characters simply because they provide a more nuanced and complex story. And that is the reader and the writer in me appreciating that attempt and that effort. It may not land on all occasions, but I think then when it falls to me to get that opportunity to write those, I get to really lean all the way in, and it's an exhilarating prospect. Again, I'm a reader before I'm a writer, and both sides of me recognizes that that's a challenge to write about.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love villain stories, or at least in this case, the stories. I mean, we know both of them will become heroes at some point because we've seen the movie. But yeah, I love the concept of either a villain just believing they're right, believing they're the good guy, or a villain starting to say, huh, is this the right way to do things? And I think that's a really great thing captured there. I got to be careful because I could just keep asking questions. I want to make sure that Nick and Chris have an opportunity here.
Yeah, and I have one, and I'm a process guy. I love behind the scenes, like every documentary about the sequel trilogy movies that they made, all of those kinds of things, Director of the Jedi, all that kind of stuff. So for you, your world building inside a universe that already exists. This, you've got story group, you have, I don't want to say constraints, because obviously there's a lot of opportunity for you as a writer, as an artist, to do your thing. What freedoms did you find in this Star Wars sandbox, and maybe what were the constraints that were a challenge for you? Tell us a little bit about that process of getting to work in Star Wars.
One of my favorite things to talk about on a school visit is I asked the young audience, the students, a question. I was like, what do you think is more difficult? Writing a book within the Star Wars universe and following the canon and everything, or writing book 2 in your own series? And everyone's always like, oh, Star Wars is Star Wars. I'm like, no, writing book 2 in my own series was more difficult than writing, within Star Wars. They had constraints. They were like, you can't go too far past, the end of episode 9 because, they have their own plans for what follows, so you can't go too far past. And then there were what I call sort of like world building or lexicon things, and that's where it really it comes in handy that I did a short story before this in the from a certain point of view anthology for Return of the Jedi, in which, like, one of my biggest issues is that they're not pistols, they're not, they're blasters. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest, like, oh, I got flagged. It's so keeping that lexicon, keeping that Star Wars dictionary in mind, that was, certainly a constraint, but they were really fluid. And, there would be times where I would have something and they would email me and be like, oh, we don't really do things like this. But actually just go ahead. It's fine. And in a lot of situations, it was just things that had never been brought up before or never really mentioned. For example, within the book, we are stormtroopers. And so we're inside of their armor a lot, and so we're thinking of the HUD and what does the HUD display? And, we have to remember the sort of technology that we have to keep in line with. I can't start inventing all sorts of, radar pings and different things, because that may not be necessarily what they had in mind. But also, we're in new territory. This is something that hasn't really been addressed before. So there are some instances where I'm like adding to canon, like I'm writing canon, because this is literally something that we have never seen a story unfold from this POV before. So there were some constraints, but they were really, really, I mean, they could have put the hammer down on many occasions. And I felt like I sort of coasted through.
So a couple of things. One, I want to go back to the elephant in the room. Because for me, when I first saw that image of Finn and Jana on the Orbaks, like for other people, like, oh, that's a cool shot from the new movie. I'm like, you don't understand how big this is. There are 2 Black people in the Star Wars scene at the same time. It's never happened before, and other people may not think much of that, but like, they don't. As a kid who's I've been Black all my life, and and a fan and everything, that is huge. That is huge. So like when I saw that this book was being done, I was ecstatic, and I just want to thank you personally, like for knocking this book out, and I'm just really happy to see more representation, and I hope you get to do more, because this is fantastic.
I appreciate it. I always think of the Donald Glover as Lando skit, and there's a collection of the Black characters in Star Wars.
3 people.
There's just like 6 people in the room. I always think of that. I was like, Lando, you'd be proud of me. And I joke too. I was like, oh man, they let me write, about everybody that was Black within Star Wars, because Lando makes a guest appearance in the opening chapter, and that's not a spoiler. I'm allowed to I'm allowed to say that. Lando makes an opening chapter. C-3PO is there. He's brownish. He's like a bronzed alloy of some sort. We can toss him. We can toss him in the pool.
Was close enough.
So it was really fun. It's something I took really seriously. But as with everything that I write, I liken my stories to birthday parties. You'll go to a birthday party that is not for you, and you can have a grand old time. There's music, there's cake. You might walk home with a goodie bag. You're going to have fun, even though the day wasn't about you. And that's how I try to write my books. You're going to have fun, even if I have an intended reader in mind. Everybody is going to come. We're going to jam. It's going to be a conga line. Yep. You're going to have too much sugar at the end of the day, but that's not my responsibility. So that's on your parents.
Yeah.
I'm going to carry that on just a little bit more and ask what may come across kind of a bizarre question. And now Chris is probably a little nervous. Nick doesn't care, but there's been there, of course, we went through some of the, I won't go into it in any depth at all, but some of the garbage that happened in the Star Wars fandom around Mos Ingram and even Rose Tico's character, Kelly Marie Tran. And the argument that I always give back as part of it is Star Wars is a huge universe. There's aliens and there's people of every color, shade, background. As you were writing this book, because you do have a history of some really interesting and really strong African American and African mythology and that sort of thing. As you went into this, is there a Star Wars situation where a stormtrooper being a Black man or a Black woman makes a difference? Or did you approach this as, it doesn't matter here in the galaxy far, far away? Because that's, oftentimes when you read or write a story from that perspective, that's a character in it as well, right? The pressures and the things that you have to deal with. But is that in play at all in these stories, or do you just ignore that and just write great characters?
I the way I was raised, and my worldview, it is never not in play. You know, I can't not write about that. And in a lot of instances, I'm not even writing about that. It's just what has shaped my storytelling ability, right? And so my parents were activists within the Black Power movement. I grew up, they created a calendar because they were unsatisfied with the way Black history was taught in school. So they just created a calendar with events that happened in each day. You know, we would go up and we would read an event from Black history off of the calendar so that we would learn, right? And then, so when I'm writing, even if I'm writing about something totally nonsensical, I'm trying to think of a moment within the book that's not a, like, even as I'm thinking of, let's go to the Esquire photo shoot with Finn and Jana on Orbax. I am thinking, as I see that, even though it may never come into play directly on the page as I'm writing a story, I immediately think of and associate that image with images that I've seen of Buffalo Soldiers and the complicated history of Black people with this Western expansion, right? As both oppressors and oppressed. So there's so much, and I think that's actually a perfect analogy, because I thought your question was going to be about, you know, what is it like, or how did you feel about writing a Black person as a stormtrooper? You know, someone who's a part of this massive organized effort to dominate, right? And to oppress. What is that like? So it's never far from my brain as I'm writing, just because of who I am and how I was raised, and also what I want my stories to be about. You will never read a Kwame Mbalia book and not walk away without having learned something. I will say that the planet of Tanawakora comes from oh my gosh, I'm going to mess it up. I am going to mess it up. That is why I always keep a web browser up with my history. Yes. Yeah. So the planet of Tanawakora, which is a very stormy, very rainy planet that, you know, Finn visits within the book. I pulled that from the Asante peoples within the West Africa, and they have a mythological character named Tanakora, and he, you know, represents thunder and lightning, right? And so a lot of my world building, this is where you'll see it the most. Every name within the book has to come from somewhere. A name isn't just a name. A name means something. A name holds a definition. It holds power, right? And so sometimes it could be as simple as, you know what? I have 3 friends who meant a lot to me. I am going to smush their names together, right? And they're going to become Captain Tracian or Lieutenant Neashar. They are people who mean something, right? In other situations, it could be planet names or ship names. And that's the beauty of being a writer. You get to create this. And why wouldn't you within reason write about a better place, a better history, a better future? And I think that is one of the beauty of writing within Star Wars. Like, yes, there's this epic clash of good versus evil. I love the middle ground where these tiny choices are made each and every day that push, you know, the momentum in one direction or another, because that's what it means to be human. That's what humanity is.
Wow. That's great. Love that.
Okay. I have it's not a selfish question, but
It's a selfish question. Don't lean into it.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead. Lean in, Chris. Agreed. I'm with Kwame. Lean in.
So I'm one of these people that I've known that Finn was force sensitive since the first movie. I knew it. I knew it. There were signs there. So I'm wondering, did the story group and this may be that kind of stuff. They have a Disney sniper with the red dot on my head right now to take me out. But were there things with his force sensitivity that does get they waved over it a little bit in the Rise of Skywalker? But were there things with his force sensitivity that you were able to expand on? Because I said I'm still a couple hours out on the audiobook, so I don't know. But were you able to touch on that a little bit, or did they say stay away from that? Were you able to put anything like? Because I know this is with his flashbacks. This is like his latent. It could be like a latent force sensitivity thing with it. Were you able to expand on any of that, or did you have to like leave that to the side and focus on the actual story?
Yeah, so they didn't say one way or the other. They didn't, as we were talking about developing the story, I made the decision that there were so many directions that we could have taken his force sensitivity, and that deserves more than a third of a book, which is what Finn's perspective gets. So I was like, I could either, as I was looking at the outline, because this is something that I thought about as well. As I'm looking at the outline, I was like, I could either, and this is my words, shoehorn this in within a couple of the chapters, or I could just say, you know what, let's focus on the sort of the relationships. Let's focus on the morality of what he's doing, and I think I didn't want to take away from that. There is a constant, I mentioned the push and pull before. There's a constant battle within Finn throughout this story, and it's between the way that I was raised and what my eyes are seeing and what I'm learning as I move into the world. And I thought that, again, this being a book for teens, that was something that I really had to lean into and focus on. And I didn't want to do any sort of injustice to the force sensitivity aspect of it, because I think that's a whole nother plot line. That's a whole nother story that deserves to be the focus. And rather than divide my young reader's attention, I was like, okay, let's leave that. Let's focus on this morality battle that is happening inside of them.
And let's hope you get another book where you get to talk about that.
Listen, we're manifesting.
Yeah,
We're manifesting.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did just recently release my own book. It's nonfiction. It's a totally different thing. But there's always a question that I get asked when I do some of these podcast interviews, and I want to ask it of you as well, because I never really thought much about it. And it's obviously different from fiction to nonfiction, but what do you want the readers to take away from this book after they've finished reading it? What will make you feel like, yeah, I got this, if one person says something to you?
I think there's a couple things. It starts with the dedication, which is, what did I write? I don't remember what I wrote. To all the troopers out there, it's never too late to join the resistance. It starts there, and throughout the book, there's an aspect of a found family, a chosen family, that moves through the story, and I want them to understand that, yeah, there are a lot of voices that are going to be telling you to do this, do that. This is what's cool. This is a trend. let's do this, let's do that. And then there will be those people who will consistently be in your corner, even when you are heading the wrong way. They will consistently be in your corner, trying to help you. Finn had it in his POV. Koi has it in the current day POV. And Jana is realizing that she is that person for her squad mates in her POV. And so I really want adults. You guys are wonderful, but I really want my young readers to read this book and walk away with, who are the people that I am choosing to listen to and why.
So like it's interesting you made that distinction, because it is a distinction. I know a lot of the best Star Wars books fall into this young adult category. I think they're the most, and which kind of talks to what Star Wars is all about. It's sort of it's being able to deliver a message from a purely mythological perspective, and also sort of simplifying that message. And I think that's why as Star Wars appealed to people from day one, because it was a morality story, and it was sort of and I think that works really well there. So it's great to hear that. And I think you're right. I think, as adults, we're probably going to take something different from it. And I just love that so many adults love the young adult books, because they're so well done.
Yeah. So, and this question is not even book related, but what is your favorite, or, I guess it is in a way. What is your favorite What is your favorite Star Wars story outside of Last Order? What is your favorite Star Wars story, and your all-time favorite character?
Oh gosh, all-time favorite character. I'm gonna let that simmer. I did not like Rogue One the first time I saw it.
Okay.
Rogue One is now my favorite Star Wars movie. I think, again, there's something in there about being a writer and a storyteller where it's like, how difficult it is to tell a story where you already know the ending, and you still have readers or viewers rooting for those characters, even though you know their fate.
Yeah.
That is an incredible feat to pull off. So from a storytelling and a craft perspective, that makes me appreciate it even more. I love the Vader run of comics. Again, we know Vader's outcome.
Yeah.
We know Vader's outcome, but this is something I tell when I go on school visits. I talk about this all the time. Vader is probably, I don't know if there's a more iconic character in all of storytelling.
Yep.
And all of storytelling, Superman, whatever. In all of storytelling, I don't know if there's a more iconic, recognizable character where you hear his breathing and who this character is before anything, right?
Yeah.
So the Vader run of comics, and being able to, again, going back into the past and exploring how he became even more powerful, the missions that he went on.
Yes.
That Vader run of comics is fantastic. I also loved, I don't know where it is. This is what happens when you have kids and teens in the house and their little sticky fingers start raiding through. Listen, I love that they're readers, but man, they have no sense of respect for my organization system or anything. Man. There's a Darth Maul Black, White, and Red edition that is really, really good. And again, Maul is a character who, through revisiting his story and building upon it, you become more and more of a fan of. So I find that, some of those comic runs you're able to do a lot with, and I'm really, really I really gravitate to those. And I love Andor. Andor is, I think is amazing. And we had the announcement at Comic-Con that, they're doing more genre stories. I think Andor was that first genre story for them, that sort of noir kind of thriller espionage venture into Star Wars, which I think landed very well. I watched the first episode of season 1 and maybe 5 or 6 times when it was first released. And then the episode where they break out of prison, I think was just a masterpiece, of story. I had chills as they were, revolting and going on and so forth. So there's so many different parts of Star Wars that I appreciate. I'm in the middle of playing Star Wars Outlaws, the latest, open world video game.
Yeah.
It got panned universally. I love it.
It's good. It's
I
so
don't
good.
care. I take critics and reviews with a grain of salt. I was like, listen, I'm standing on a bridge in the middle of a mission, just looking out over the landscape. Like I'm in the middle of a place I've never been before. This is phenomenal.
Let me tell you what I did. All right, I'm playing this Cave Vest. Of course, I'm walking through Mos Eisley, and I see that there's an option to sit just at a random booth at a random table. I sat at that table and I just watched Star Wars, just Star Wars life. It was awesome. It was awesome, and I think Cave Vest is a great character too.
Yeah. All of the people that went on the Galactic Star Cruiser and they did like the 24 36 hours worth of like live action role play on the ship, I'm like, that's great. All I want to do is sit in that bar and watch Star Wars happen around me. Like, I don't care about going and playing the games and doing the missions. Like, I just want to sit there and let Star Wars happen. Like, yes. I'm with you 100%.
I got an opportunity. I went to the American Librarian Association conference 2024. It was in San Diego. I had a free day. Drove up to Anaheim to Disneyland. Went to Galaxy's Edge. Didn't have the kids with me. Nobody rushing me. Nobody trying to get to another park. No character greeting. I had like 4 Ronto burgers.
Yes.
Yes.
Just sat there. I had bought a pen. I bought a notebook, and I just started writing.
Just sat there. Yeah.
And I was like, this is wonderful.
I haven't been yet. I haven't had the chance to go to Galaxy's Edge, but that's going to be me. Like, I'm going to ride both of the rides one time. And I'm just going to post up somewhere and just like let it hit me because it's been Star Wars for my entire life.
Just grab a bench. They have the speakers that pump like the speeders going by, and the random creatures. It's just like, let me just sit here. Let me just sit here.
Yeah.
Yep. Just be there.
That's fantastic. Well, Kwame, we want to thank you for giving us an hour of your time. And I seriously, I'm going to say it. If you ever want to come back and just, even not necessarily even talk about book, you just want to come on and hang out with us. I feel like you're
always welcome.
You're in that same mindset as us on a lot of things. And I'd love to dig in more with more things, but where can people make sure to follow you? Where's the best place to keep up with what you're doing and on the socials, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm active on Instagram way too much. That's just at Mbalia1, my last name and the number 1. My website is KwameMbalia.com. I have yet to close the feedback form, so you can send me whatever you want. I haven't had to close it in the 7 or 8 years I've had the website open. So. And I'm pretty responsive, so you can hit me up. That comes straight to me. Other than that, you will probably find me in a bookstore somewhere in the Star Wars section. Not with any of the novels, but just with the schematic, vehicle, blown up around me, just so that I'm like,
dictionaries. That's it.
Even before I wrote Star Wars and I was just a fan, I was writing sci-fi. I was like, this is really helpful. This is no. This is the propulsion. This is where the ion cannons would go. No, that totally makes sense. So find me in your local bookstore, your local library. I'm a nerd before all else.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I really think like everything you're saying. I'm like, this guy has hung out with us before somewhere, so I don't know. We're all related somehow. But Kwame, this has been really a blast, and seriously, go check out The Last Order as soon as you can. It's I could just gush about like just the way you captured Finn and Jana. The cover is amazing. It's just a fun story, and you know the characters that aren't Finn and Jana are brought to life in wonderful ways as well. So that's really great. We are going to take next week off for Thanksgiving. We're not sure when we'll be back next because we're trying to figure out the schedule. But hey, follow us on our socials and follow us on the sswnetwork.com. And Kwame, thanks again. And Nick, the force will be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.